This paper started with our refusal to heed some good advice. In Phenomenology of Perception, Merleau-Ponty urges against considering depth and breadth as equivalent. He specifically cautions against a theoretical understanding of perception overriding an embodied one. As he would say, a pushing aside of our actual experience. However, I find it productive to set aside Merleau-Ponty's description of the originality of depth, and in the fabricated space of painting to consider depth and breadth as terms endlessly open to supposition and dependent on point of view. Within a pictorial consideration of orientation, or mode of address, the plan is to remain willfully undecided about a distinction between depth and breadth. Visually calling on and passing compositions that can be characterized as either prioritizing depth or prioritizing breadth, or that activate one dimension in response to the other. This is done without much sense of art historical responsibility on my part, but it does hopefully give a sense of precedence and context to the work of 3 contemporary UK-based painters that I want to specifically reference. Jane Harris, John Wilkins, and Beth Harland. The compositional structures employed in their work negotiate, I think, a shifting situation between depth and breadth, a switch between inwards, outwards, upwards, and across. This switch and shift I have chosen to call rotation, and I put it forward as an operation of the tableau form. Tableau understood as an underlying, non-appearing structure, as Christian Bonnefoy has described it, and tableau as a holding apparatus, as I propose it. Apparatus is familiar via Michel Foucault and has developed a history of use within painting and in particular the tableau. For me, apparatus is productive because of the sense of functioning, combining and reconfiguring of elements coming together across space and in a moment of time. An apparatus is reckoned as something that responds to a need. It is useful, and crucially, it has moving parts. It therefore can, as I imagine it, facilitate a rotation between depth and breadth, a rotation that ungrinds and upends within the immobility of the pictorial. But for now, I would like to spend some more time considering the word holding, holding as an operational condition of the tableau form. And so in the phrase holding apparatus, I'm thinking of holding in 3 ways. Firstly, holding back, or holding at bay, in the sense of establishing distance, but significantly establishing distance when a confrontation of sorts is on the cards, and establishing distance under the circumstances of extreme closeness. Distance is a factor in providing the necessary wholeness that was once such a key qualifying factor of the tableau, and arguably such a demand for wholeness only became urgent when fragment was also a possibility. For me, the holding of holding back can be characterized as defensive, a holding back at the point of closeness, closeness that is understood at a remove. Secondly, in the sense of holding fast, a firm grasp to prevent falling or moving, and visualized by me as a pulling in from the sides, a forced totality in a state of tension. A temporary equilibrium that still suggests impending collapse or fragmentation. Jonathan Harris talks about the tableau as an ideal, unreachable and obscure, and he proposes the idea of an occluded totality, with all the associations of a thing intentionally blocked, clogged, and closed. Here, the holding apparatus offers a resistance to looking while fully functioning as a thing to be looked at, a gathering in. Oh, I've lost an image, but anyway, it's gone. A gathering in and also a dispersal, activated by edge and limit. Then thirdly, holding in the sense of holding attention, arresting one's contemplative faculties and focusing concentration within a limited field. Jonathan Crary, writing on forms of attention in the 19th century, identifies a socially useful attentiveness, and then also a dangerously absorbed or diverted attention. Crary argues that attention and its counterpoint distraction exist on a single continuum, that attention is continuous with states of distraction, reverie, dissociation and trance. Crary further stresses an idea of attention as a state of suspension, of being held immobile, wrapped, ungrounded even, and also suspension as an interruption and a cancellation. The holding attention that I connect to the tableau as holding apparatus has as much to do with inattention, of something unsettled, of something withheld, and does not intend to evoke the stability of a fixed position or some ideal state of looking. The other connection that holding offers, but which I want to acknowledge and sidestep at the same time, is to beholding and beholder, the terms of choice for Michael Fried. Within a framework of beholding, Fried examines two pictorial modes of address, or one could say two forms of attention, which he describes as absorptive and theatrical. There is not time to go into the dimensional properties of the compositions cited by Fried, but interestingly they are both a picturing and a facilitation of a particular form of attentiveness, image and attitude meeting. But rather than beholder, I prefer to think about an observer. Following Crary's lead, observer provides a sense of observing rules and codes in addition to its visual connotations, and that seems pertinent within a pictorial tradition. Though obviously one who sees, an observer is more importantly one who sees within a prescribed set of possibilities, one who is embedded in a system of conventions and limitations. For me, the word beholder has associations with an uncomfortably reverential and privileged sort of looking that I wish to avoid. Rather, I want to consider something more provisional, open, and unsettled, yet bounded by history and precedents. Returning to Merleau-Ponty, as he takes time to clearly point out the distinction between depth and breadth. Depth, he says, is the dimension in which things or elements of things envelop each other, whereas breadth and height are the dimensions in which they are juxtaposed. And also, depth announces a certain indissoluble link between things and myself, by which I am placed in front of them, whereas breadth can, at first sight, pass for a relationship between things themselves, in which the perceiving subject is not implied. Merleau-Ponty characterises depth as a dimension that operates through direct confrontation, and breadth as a dimension that operates at a remove. Both confrontation and remove distance have been proposed as attributes of the tableau. But even as he disputes any sense of equivalence between depth and breadth, Merleau-Ponty also suggestively and convincingly describes their exchangeability. He says, "What I call depth is in reality a juxtaposition of points, making it comparable to breadth. I am simply badly placed to see it. I should see it if I were in the position of a spectator looking on from the side, who can take it in at a glance.